What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today we're going to get into one of the top contenders for the #1 push build for the Necromancer next season. It's the PoisonLancer Necromancer. This build's already pushing into the 110 plus range on PTR right now. I personally cleared a GR104 with over 5 minutes left on the clock. So obviously can go a lot higher, and it could potentially dethrone the really popular Bloodlancer build from this season. So without further ado, let's get into the PoisonLancer Necromancer. Quick caveat, this is using the Pestilence set. And if you guys haven't been on PTR lately, last week they changed Pestilence again. If you haven't checked out our Blight Spear build, definitely go give that a look. It's actually even more powerful now, believe it or not. But they basically increased the Bone Spear damage by 1,000 and the Corpse Lance Corpse Explosion damage by 500%. So right out of the gate, you guys are going to notice that this build and skill setup looks a lot like the Bloodlancer. And it basically is the Bloodlancer, but using the Pestilence set. And again, guys, if you look at the leaderboard right now, you can see I've actually cleared a 104 myself with over 5 minutes left. GR104 with over 5 minutes left. And since I've last checked the PTR, someone has used this build to push 110. And even he had 3.5 minutes left. So the potential to go higher is definitely there. This build revolves around the skill Corpse Lance with Ricochet. Let's talk about how we're going to juice that up. So we're using the Pestilence set in this setup, and it's important to note what exactly Pestilence does. The 2-piece says each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby enemy. Great, because Corpse Lance again is our damage dealer here, and we're going to be consuming corpses like crazy. Another way we're juicing this up is with the Pestilence 6-piece, which basically just says Corpse Lance damage is increased by 2,000%. We're also using the Endless Walk set, the Compass Rose, and the Traveler's Pledge, which says while standing still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. And to use Corpse Lance, guys, to spam it just like we do on the Bloodlancer build, we stay still. So this is really good. We're also using Convention of Elements, which, as you guys know, has a 3-element rotation on the Necromancer. So when this rotates the poison, we are a god. We're also using trag'oul's Corroded Fang, which also gives you 200% increased damage to cursed enemies. And everything's going to be cursed in this build. Just like the trag'oul's Bloodlancer, we're going to be casting curses like crazy. And of course, in the cube, we're using Relina's Shadow Hook. Every point of maximum essence increases your damage by 0.5%, and blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that secondary effects because we're not using bone spikes. And how this works, basically, you have 330 essence, say, on your character. You would get half of that as just base damage multiplier, which in this case would be 165%. But of course, just like the Bloodlancer, we're using Simulacrum with Reservoir, which says your maximum essence is increased by 100% while Simulacrum is active. So when you pop Simulacrum Reservoir, our essence is going to shoot up to 660, which would give us 330% damage modifier. So again, a big thing to note here, guys, is you're going to want maximum essence everywhere you can get it. You're going to want it in Paragon. You're going to want it on the secondary of your weapon. You're going to want it on the secondary of your offhand. And you're going to want to run Overwhelming Essence passive. And of course, since this is a Corpse Lance build, we are using Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which says Corpse Lance damage is increased by 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse, max 20 stacks. So again, guys, at 20 stacks, you're going to get a 600% damage multiplier for your Corpse Lance. These shoulders are amazing, a must. And then of course, what Necro build would be complete without using Crispin Sentence? Deal 100% increased damage to enemies that are slowed, and triple that bonus against enemies afflicted by other type of control impairing effects. And guess what? We are using Land of the Dead Frozen Lands, so they're going to get CC, they're going to get frozen, you're going to proc that triple damage bonus, another damage multiplier for Corpse Lance. We're also using Zai's Stone of Vengeance, which says basically you get more damage the further you are away from the mob, and it also has a chance to stun the target, which is nice for Crispin Sentence. And of course, we're using Bane the Trap, which just gives you a flat damage increase against enemies that are affected by control impairing effects. And again, that's what we're all about. We're a Necro using Crispin Sentence, so this is just really good. So that's how we're juicing up Corpse Lance to do crazy, crazy amounts of damage. And again, guys, we've talked about this in so many of our builds because it's such a powerful combination. Land of the Dead with Devour. This basically lets us devour corpses without even corpses having to be there, which, as you guys know, will proc the 2-piece Pestilence, which says each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance, and it will fire off your slotted Corpse Lance. So whatever rune you pick on this Corpse Lance, that's the kind of Corpse Lance that gets auto-consumed with the Pestilence 2-piece. So just to show you again, guys, you're going to fire off Land of the Dead, you're going to spam Devour, and it's going to fire off whatever corpse lance you have ruined. It's amazing combination. Other skills, just like the Blood Lancer, we're using Decrepify with Borrowed Time. You gain 1% cooldown reduction for every enemy curse. So again, the goal is to get like a nice juicy pack together around an elite pack. Get them all cursed, pop your 2 big cooldowns, Simulacrum, Land of the Dead, and go to town on those elites. You want to make sure you target the elites and not just anything. Although, with this build, you're much better at clearing the AoE than you are on the Blood Lancer setup, but it's still really important to target those elites. For mobility, we're using Blood Rush with Molting. Why Molting? Because it will keep our 4-piece Pestilence going between elite packs. This is really important. You need that 50% damage mitigation. Other forms of mitigation, we're using Dainty's Binding here. So just as long as an enemy is cursed, you're going to get a flat 50% damage reduction. We're also using the Endless Walk set, so if you're moving, we're going to get even more damage reduction. And of course, we're using Esoteric Alteration, which will basically almost double your sheet toughness. And then of course, Decrepify itself will reduce the mob's damage by 30%. Now this is more tanky than the Blood Lancer setup because it has one extra form of mitigation, but where it really suffers is the healing between killing elites. As you guys know, in the Blood Lancer setup, you get every rune on Blood Rush, so to heal you can port through mobs, and that will heal you for some amount, which is pretty nice. But on this build, we have to run Molting to keep our toughness up. We can't run the healing rune. Now, before we get into passives, we want to talk about a couple different variations we see out there. But I wanted to touch on what I ran, and then I'll show you guys what other players are doing also. They both work actually really great. You know, some of the passives that you shouldn't probably change out is you do want Bloodless Power. Again, we're using huge cooldowns here. So Bloodless Power is going to proc a ton here because you're going to lose a lot of life. You're pretty squishy, so taking damage from mobs is going to proc this, plus your Blood Rush will take life from you and it will eventually proc Bloodless Power. So this is an absolute must, I think. Final Service is also a must. We don't use pets in this build. Having a DI is super important, especially when pushing Greater Rifts. These two are kind of non-negotiable, but everything else kind of is. Now, Overwhelming Essence is going to give us a flat damage bonus because, again, we are using Relina Shadow Hook in the cube. The more essence we have, the more damage we do. This is a really strong choice. Standalone is also a super strong choice because, again, we don't have any pets here. Where you get a flat 100% armor bonus. But what I have seen other players do is they would drop Overwhelming Essence, so they drop a little bit of damage to gain Draw Life passive. And then Draw Life increases your life regeneration by 10% for each enemy within 20 yards. So you're probably going to have a good amount of density here, so Draw Life is going to be pretty good. And then they pair that with the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard, which will give you a flat regeneration amount, which is really nice because, like I said, this build really lacks healing. And then after not taking damage for 4 seconds, gain an Absorption Shield for 200% of your life per second. So assuming you have some mobs around you with Draw Life, and also assuming your Gizzard is pretty high in level, you're going to get a decent shield that will protect you from mob incoming damage. Of course, to do this, we would drop Esoteric Alteration, which is basically doubling your toughness. So it's kind of a trade-off. More healing or more toughness. It's up to you guys. I'm actually going to talk about potions real quick because if you're using the Gizzard setup, you definitely want to use a Bottomless Potion of Regeneration. Being able to get 100k more life regeneration and potentially an even higher shield is going to be really powerful. If you're not using the Gizzard, I definitely recommend either Potion of the Bottomless Leech. When this thing fires off and you have your cooldowns up, you're going to heal through basically anything that comes your way. But the same can basically be said for Bottomless Potion of Amplification. Increases healing from all sources by 25%. This will make your Devour heal you for that much more. Because we're spamming our Devour when we have our big cooldowns up, it can be really nice as well. Again, guys, just to talk about playstyle, you want to get the biggest possible pack together you can to proc the Borrowed Time on your Decrepify curse. And then say there's like an elite pack in the middle of all this. You want to pop both cooldowns, Simulacrum and Land of the Dead. You're going to spam your Devour as fast as you possibly can, and you're going to just spam your Corpse Lance, keeping in mind that you want to target the elite packs, get them dead. They are your priority one. And just like the Blood Lancer push build, if the Templar spawns an Oculus Ring, you want to try to stand in that as fast as you can. Even if you're in the middle of your big rotation, just do a quick port, stand inside that circle. It's going to increase your damage by a lot. And you guys will see if you watch people play the Blood Lancer push build on live. Say this was the elite pack. One of the things you want to do is try to kill one of the measly little trash mobs that's around the big big juicy pack, try to get that Oculus Rift to spawn. The further it can spawn away from the target you're actually trying to kill, the better, because again, Oculus Ring will give you a huge damage modifier, 85%. Plus, the further that circle is away from the mob, the more damage you're going to be getting from Zai's Stone of Vengeance. We've gone over the gear, we've gone over the skills, we've gone over the gems. The only thing really left to note here is we are using Nemesis Bracers. Nemesis Bracers will spawn champions on shrines, which can be really nice because this build is all about hunting those elites. So if you can actually get an elite pack on top of the shrine and then spawn a double elite pack, you're going to be sitting pretty on your progress bar for your Greater Rift. The offhand is literally just a stat 6, so any one of the Necromancer offhands will work just fine. Now for stat priority, this is a heavily cooldown based build, so you're going to want cooldown everywhere you can get it. You're going to want it on your gloves, your shoulders, a gem in the helmet. You're going to want it on your weapon. You're going to want it on your offhand. You're going to want it on both ring slots, and even on the necklace if you can get like a dream roll. But real quick, we'll just talk about stat priority. On the gloves, cooldown, crit chance, crit damage are the top 3. Intelligence is really nice. And anytime you can get physical resistance on the secondary, it's going to be really strong. Pickup radius is no slouch as well. Make sure you have some pickup radius so you're not just like wasting time trying to pick up globes. Shoulders, Invite, cooldown reduction with Corpse Lance damage. Helmet, Invite, crit chance with a socket for that diamond. It's very important. On the chest, Invite, Corpse Lance damage with 3 sockets. On the belt, ideally you'd want to have Invite, life, and armor with a resistance in the secondary, preferably physical, and the highest possible damage mitigation roll you can get, which is up to 50%. Pants, Invite, armor with sockets. Boots, Invite, armor, movement speed would be good. We have Bone Spear on this because these are the same boots we use for our Blight Spear build. And again, guys, go check that out. On the weapon, we'd actually want the Dream Roll here if we can possibly get it, which is going to be cooldown reduction, attack speed, percent damage, plus obviously a base damage roll. So we would want a corrosive thing that you could roll off intelligence. That would be the dream. On the offhand, crit chance, cooldown reduction, intelligence, and then a damage roll are going to be the big priorities. If you think you can get away with it, roll off that vitality for Corpse Lance damage. And again, important secondaries on both the weapon and the offhand is maximum essence roll. It's really important here. On the rings, cooldown reduction, crit chance, crit damage, socket. Those are your most important 4 stats to roll. Now on the necklace, we have a poison, we found a dream roll, poison, primal, traveler's pledge, so we're using that, but I think I would rather have cooldown reduction, crit chance, crit damage. And then the bracers, poison damage with int, bite, and crit chance. And that's basically going to do it for the video. This I think could be just as strong as PoisonLancer. Only time will tell on the leaderboards basically. But like I said, I cleared a 104 with over 5 minutes left. The current highest pestilence that we saw pop up is 110, and this guy had 3.5 minutes left. The highest on PT right now is a PoisonLancer with 115, and he had almost 2 minutes left. So it's hard to say which one's going to be better. It's all going to be about, I think, fishing ultimately in the long run. I also think Pestilence is really strong against Rift Guardians, so we could see this setup in a lot of the 4-man meta. I don't know that this will necessarily beat out RG Killer Necro, which is an Anarius, especially since Anarius got buffed, but this will be really strong for the RG kill. But that's going to do it, guys. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to stop by the stream anytime. As always, we really appreciate all the support juice we've been getting. Blizzard actually even featured us on their Twitter page, which is really cool. We were actually on the Battle.net startup screen yesterday. So a lot of people saw, my stupid face looking at them when they logged into Diablo. But of course, we appreciate all the support juice you send our way. Big shout out to our subscribers, donations. We love you guys. As always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.
more time.
Guardian is here.